Hello.
Hi, Scott.
What's your name?
Jess.
Hey, Jess. And where did you grow up? And where do you live now?
I grew up near Portsmouth on the south coast, and I live in southeast London now.
Great. And what's been the predominant practice of your life?
So I would say that dancing has been my main practice, and I consider Ashtanga to be a kind of form of dancing for me. It's like a kind of dancing on the breath. Yeah.
And what was your segue into the practice of dancing? What did it kind of give you? What was the way in?
I remember dancing when I was probably about 3 or 4, and then again when I was about 7. So I think I've always been dancing. It's so hard to put into words what it gives me. I suppose it's a way of expressing the bits that are in between the words, that the words can sort of point to, but they don't really express that thing. And so, yeah, so I think that's what it is.
Did it kind of like, when you started dancing at 4 or 5, was it just something that you just, I know that's like a while ago, but was it something that you just immediately connected to, and then over time it's been this expression of that, how you just laid it out has evolved?
Yeah, so I think when I was about 3 or 4, I was just dancing in the same way that you might just draw a picture. If you're 3 or 4, you might do whatever. And yeah, so obviously I didn't really think much about what I was doing or why I was doing it, but I have a lot of memories from then up until, because I didn't do a formal dance class until I was about 19, I think. But I have lots of memories of just moments of being like really carried away by dancing, by moving. And then when I was about 18, I started doing yoga, and then when I was about 19, I started doing ballet. So then I began to have a kind of a formal expression of movement. And then I started practicing conscious dance when I was, I don't know, about 37, 38 or something. So, yeah, which kind of took me back to the beginning, where it's just really spontaneous and unchoreographed again, and there are no steps. Yeah.
So you had about 18 years of like being choreographed through yoga, and like what did the yoga bring to your dance, and what did the dance bring to your yoga, and what was the entry point to that?
Well, I think I started yoga first because that was what was available to me, and then ballet became available and I started doing ballet, and ballet was the thing that I was really obsessed with. I didn't really, although I practiced yoga for a long time in the background, I didn't really get into yoga until I started doing Ashtanga when I was about 38, 2001, I started doing Ashtanga. And then I stopped doing ballet. So they've got this kind of really sort of strange interlocking relationship with each other. But now I'm doing both Ashtanga and ballet. So now they are feeding each other. Like they feed each other kind of physically, technically.
And what's being fed?
Oh, that's a good question. Something about my physical body and how I embody in it. I don't really know any language for this, because I could say, like, in terms of functionally, in terms of how I produce functional movement, and that's definitely a thing, but there's something deeper to me as somebody who's hypermobile and dyspraxic and started out with some quite weird movement patterns in terms of them being helpful in a functional way. So there's something about that process of having functional movement and finding muscles and finding strength and finding more proprioception that is actually quite deep. Like, it's not really just about, oh, well, that's good, I have less pain doing this now, or that's good, that looks more kind of normal when I do that. And, I kind of struggle to put words to that because it feels quite fundamental to who I am. It's sort of like being able to stand up and kind of stand in my feet and know where my edges are and know, and feel like I'm in here in quite a contained way.
It sounds like there's some deep personal language and communication that you're getting in touch with.
And I guess this is where, when I'm talking about the spaces between the words, this is sort of what it is. This is all this kind of wordless territory, which is very hard to express.
Did you have, before you practiced yoga, and was it yoga that helped you to start to connect this language? Like, was dance an expression of something, and then yoga came along and it asked you to be?
No, not really.
Okay.
No, I think it was just a very gradual, slow thing over the years of becoming more in my body. And actually now, whether I'm doing an Ashtanga practice or I'm doing a ballet class, doesn't really matter to me. Like, it's all a movement practice. And in some ways, actually, I feel at this point, I feel more present in the ballet class because I know the Ashtanga sequence. I could do it in my sleep. So it's quite easy to just sort of go off somewhere or be thinking something and I'm doing it. But with ballet, like, I've got to be really there because I don't know, I've got to keep learning the choreography, keep learning the steps, keep working out how to do them. So in some really interesting way, I find myself more present at this point in a ballet class than in an Ashtanga practice. That's something that I have to actively keep bringing myself back to, like, am I here? Whereas in a ballet class, I'm just here because I have to be. It's all happening so fast, and have I learnt that step, can I do it?
So I'm really interested in this evolution of you understanding yourself, and in relationship to the terms you used before, which is the dyspraxia and the hypermobility. Can you talk a little bit more about how these practices have helped you with the things that you have in your life that are there?
Yeah. So when I was 18, 19, early 20s, in fact right up to my late 20s probably, I feel like ballet, which is what I was mostly doing then, I was doing a bit of yoga, but I was mostly doing ballet. I feel like it saved my life, really, because I was this very young autistic person trying to, because I'm also autistic, trying to deal with a lot of things that were really beyond my capacity at that point to deal with, like social things and work things and just everything, everything really. Like, everything seemed beyond my capacity to deal with. So for me, like, being in a ballet class was a very sort of known place. It was very structured. I felt like, because I was hypermobile, I felt like I fitted in. Like, it felt like it was the one place in the world where it was normal to walk in and kind of start, doing this with your leg and all this kind of stuff. So I really felt like at that point, ballet saved my life. And then, gosh, this is such a big question that you've asked. And then hypermobility. That's been a long process of realization as well. So I guess when I first encountered yoga when I was 18, I sort of really struggled with it because I was doing Iyengar yoga. I kind of struggled with it because I was really dyspraxic and sort of floppy and all over the place. But I also at the same time found it weirdly, really easy in ways that other people didn't. So I have quite a vivid memory, and this kind of, actually even now this sometimes happens to me, but of being in quite a big class. It was a very big class, and being invited to sit in Virasana and just sitting in Virasana, like, okay, this is a normal sitting position for me, and noticing that other people couldn't do that. So on the one hand, I had that experience of, oh, this is really easy, but also, oh, this is really hard because I can't really stand up for very long. I can't produce these standing postures without them looking quite strange. So that was the beginning of my hypermobility journey with yoga. And yeah, I mean, over the years, I obviously at that point I didn't know I was hypermobile. I don't think that was really even a thing in 1981 so much. But yeah, it's been a long journey of kind of understanding that more somewhat through, Ashtanga is a bit of a, like, it's great for understanding hypermobility in one way, but it's also really difficult for hypermobility because it's all about creating shapes that require loads of mobility. So it's a bit of a, it's a bit of a difficult one to negotiate. So in some ways it's been very educational, in other ways it's been really challenging. Yeah.
Do you think that's why the balance between yoga and dance, or yoga and ballet, has been helpful?
Well, coming back to it now and actually doing them both at the same time, yeah, there's definitely a helpful balance. There are definitely lots of things in ballet that are not in Ashtanga, and actually vice versa as well. Like, there's no upper body really in ballet. But you need upper body in order to, be able to do all this kind of thing and look okay. Yeah, so they definitely inform each other. And then the other thing that's sort of in there as well is conscious dance, which is sort of where I was at the beginning when I was just moving spontaneously without any choreography. And so that also brings a thing that is missing from the other two.
There's something really lovely about this, almost like an expression that the practice has helped you to understand. And I'm hearing when you talk about this idea of the space between the words, the language that isn't spoken, that can't be, but you're just trying to get in touch with it. And it seems like with all the different things you have, that's been the predominant way of you trying to understand what you just can't get in touch with, but you can sense.
Yeah, and it's been a way of, it's a path of embodiment. It's kind of like, and maybe that thing that I was speaking about earlier on, maybe that's what it is, like being, it's embodiment, it's being in the body and feeling the edges and being able to stand in my feet. I guess that's embodiment in a way. Yeah, and I'm very interested in the bits that are between the words, because I write as well sometimes when I'm not blocked. But I'm quite often blocked at writing, and I'm never blocked in moving. Yeah, somehow there's always a way to move, but there isn't always a way to write things down.
Yeah, I suppose we could look at, like, how can you embody your writing like you've embodied your body?
Yeah.
There's if we look at writing, we can look at writing as being like movement as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about, I guess I can get stuck in words, which I don't so much in movement. And if I get stuck in one place in movement, there's always another kind of movement to do. So, yeah.
Is there a pattern about the words, the movement of the words, or is it just suddenly you just get blocked? Or is there a pattern that you can attest to that, like, you can go, when that happens, that's when I get blocked?
I don't think there's a pattern. I mean, at the moment, I think I'm blocked because I wrote Ravelled Up, which was about my experience. I mean, kind of a little bit about what we're talking about, my experience of moving, practicing Ashtanga, being autistic, teaching and facilitating movement. And in a way, I felt like, okay, I've said everything I have to say about this. And I'm just waiting for another wave of something to come through that is different, that I need to kind of, sort of bring out of body and put into language. Because it feels quite important to me also to put it into language. But it's very difficult to put it into language. Yeah, and sometimes it dies if I try to put it into language. Yeah. But for me, definitely movement is, like, if there's something I need to process or something I need to find out, that's how I would do it in movement. Like, it would be a dance. It would be, okay, let me just kind of drop in and see, like what wants to move, like, because that takes me to the things that I don't know yet. Whereas I feel like with words, I do sometimes find out things that I don't know yet, but words are more like, words seem to relate more to, I'm wondering if this is true actually. I was going to say they relate more to what I already know, but that would be really boring writing. So maybe they don't, but sometimes they can end up being about what I already know, and I'm not interested in that.
Mm. What do you think over the years, this evolution of getting in touch with the space between the words, the stuff that's in between, has taught you about yourself?
It's taught me that I'm fluid, that I'm a fluid process, and that things just keep moving. Things just keep moving. So I think I started out life trying to really kind of, make things static in order to sort of control them or feel like I had some control over them, which is, that doesn't really go anywhere, because we're not in control, things aren't static. So the process of moving, has enabled me to kind of be in more of a fluid relationship with what's happening, with things changing, with getting older, with aging, and I suppose that gives me a sense that actually whatever happens, whatever the next wave is, whatever comes in, it's okay, because I can move with it. Even if it's really hard, I can move with that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
And what have you learned about yourself through all your practice that you'd like to share with others?
I'd like to share with others. I just the importance of movement. That's not even the right word. Just the beauty of movement and the joy of movement, and just move. Just move. That's yeah. it's so rich just to move. In some way, anyway, just move. Yeah, that's sort of probably the main the main message of all my teaching, I guess. If you really boil it down to, you know, underneath all the different things that I do and different ways that I offer those, I guess that's probably what's underneath that. Like, just move.
Thank you, Jess.
Yeah.
That's really kind. Thank you for that conversation.
Thank you, Scott.